nervous because, doesn't it? It turns out that tonight's guest has his own minder, and he sent us this message.
You look after him because I know where you are, all right?
All right, Dennis. No worries. We promise we will. It's George Cole! See? He's still looking after you now, George!
But you know not, we know you have a heart of gold because he did go on to say this a little bit later. Here we are.
My dear old King Cole, how are you, mate? They caught me while I'm doing a bit of New Tricks, which is this new show I'm in. But all those centuries ago when we started Minder, I've got to tell everybody I was a huge fan of this man, and it just grew and grew all the time I worked with him. He was just brilliant. He was a wonderful actor and a really wonderful bloke, and I love him dearly.
Well, George, you're on tonight to talk about your autobiography, which you've finally written at the age of, what is it, 88 you are now?
And a half.
88 and a half. So, I mean, thinking back to everything that you've done in your career, because we know you for so much, I mean, how do you put Minder in context?
Right at the top.
Do you?
Yep. I mean, you can't do something for 107 performances unless you love it.
Sure.
George, let's talk about your autobiography. And you were saying it's been a bit of a labour of love. It's taken you the best part of a year to write it.
Yes.
And it starts with you as a young boy in London in 1930s. How then does a working class London boy become an actor? Tell us the story.
Well, I went to Surrey Council School in Morden, and from the age of 12 you were allowed to do a job either in the morning at crack of dawn or in the evening after you finished school. And I got a job selling newspapers and delivering papers around the streets. At the end of the day, every day I was doing it, I would take home with me one of each of the evening newspapers, Evening News, Star and Standard, and simply just read it. And on the day I left school, you had to go into the headmaster's study and meet someone from the Board of Trade. Mm-hmm. And I went in, and they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to go on the stage." And the headmaster said, "Get out."
Right.
Go to the back of the queue. So I went to the back of the queue, and by the time I got to the head of the queue, they didn't even ask me what I wanted to do. They said, the man from the Ministry of Labour said, "Go to Kay's the Butcher's in Morden, Monday morning, 8 o'clock. They need an errand boy with a bike." So I thought, don't want to do that. And I went home and again read these 3 papers. And there, jumping out at me, was an advertisement that said, "Small boy wanted for musical show."
Excellent.
That was it. Well, I was going to say, where does Alistair Sim come into all of this? Because you certainly didn't see him at the mince counter, did you?
No.
And you ended up living with him.
Yeah. But that was much later.
Yeah.
No, the curious thing was, the first time I became aware of him was when I went to the Gaumont in Rose Hill, Morden.
Yeah.
And there was a film on called Something Afloat.
Okay.
Right.
In which he played a genie out of a bottle with the Crazy Gang. And it was wonderful. But he was so good and so fascinating, I wanted to know what his name was. And I was still sitting there when everybody else had gone, and I was reading all the end credits.
Oh, yeah, really? Yeah.
Alistair Sim, it sounded such a strange name.
Yeah. Well, you were in All Sorts together, and let's have a little look at you in St Trinian. Here we go.
I've lost hope.
What on earth are you doing here? And will you please knock before entering?
No, I don't want nobody to see me. Here, there's something going on in this joint you want to know about.
Isn't there always?
It's this letter. I opened it this afternoon. Posted in the school box by one of your mistresses.
Tell me, do you always open the school correspondence?
And the book is called The World Was My Lobster, and there's a picture of you on the cover dressed as Arthur Daley. Just remind us then where that phrase came from originally.
Well, my oldest son, who's a scriptwriter, came to have dinner with us one night and said, "I heard the most wonderful line in a pub today," and he said, "It's straight out of Minder." And I said, "What was it?" And he said, "Well, this older man said to the younger one, 'I'm telling you, my son, the world is your lobster.'" I took out my wallet, took out £25, gave it to my son. I said, that's mine.
You know, did you know at that stage that that's what you were going to call your autobiography when it came round to writing it?
No.
No, just sprung to mind. No. Okay.
And I said, don't you give that to anyone else at all. And so I put it in the back of my mind. And I sat on it for about 2 years. And then suddenly we had a boxing episode. And when I went round the dressing room afterwards to see Terry, his face was pouring with blood and he was moaning. And I said, stop worrying, Terry. From now on, the world is your lobster. And I have a feeling the person who said that either didn't know the original or didn't like oysters.
Great. Classic.
Brilliant.
But a few months later, the man who created the series said to me, I here owe you £12.50. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I thought it was the best line I'd ever written.